My story is pretty unique in and of itself. Started the company with my wife, actually, which is probably breaking business rule number one. But having said that, I went to school for audio engineering, learning how to record and mix and produce music, and opened a small recording studio across from Stobie's Pizza downtown London. And on my birthday of all days, the London Free Press came alongside me and did a story up and published this article in the Free Press on my birthday. Stephanie, who I had yet to meet, her mom cut out this article. And you see, she was a classically trained singer at Western, and she was looking to record a demo of her voice singing. She would sing at special events and so forth. So she came in and at her mom's kind of prompting, and we really hit it off. And because of that same newspaper article, I had other local small businesses that were saying, hey, do you think you could do a voice for our phone system? Or what about a local radio commercial, and we want a female voice talent? Well, I only knew kind of one girl in the whole city, so I called Stephanie up and I said, hey, come on down, it's pretty easy, all you gotta do is read this script, this page of copy, and we'll split the money. And so we did that for a while and realized that, hey, if we're doing this in London, Ontario, and we're modestly successful, you know, there's this much grander opportunity. What if we could build this global marketplace that brings all of these parties together? So I was really into eBay at the time, the concept of bringing buyers and sellers together. So I thought, well, why don't we do this for, you know, this kind of niche market, voiceovers? So now we have 250,000 users from all around the world, companies like Facebook and Apple, Sony, McDonald's, Google, that do a lot of, you know, corporate training videos and need them narrated, educational content for universities and colleges, you know, games and so forth. So it's not just kind of your typical radio and television commercials. It's actually a kind of a $12 billion market worldwide. So lots of opportunity, and we did start just the two of us, and there's 3 of us that work downtown now.
Started a company previous to Big Viking Games doing Facebook analytics, Facebook game analytics or mobile analytics. It was funded by Facebook back in 2007, around the same time we were funded by Facebook. I ran into a guy here, of all places, in London, Ontario, and I was actually visiting Toronto, and I eventually actually went to visit him. And we were running a company that was pretty small at the time. We may have had a handful of people. We were raising our first round of funding. We just got some money from Facebook. We were looking for seed capital. It just so happens that Greg Thompson, who's this guy who's crazy in London building Facebook apps, made a shit ton of money and wanted to invest in stuff. And Greg and I kind of hit it off after meeting at a conference and decided to invest a bunch of money in Contagion along with other crazy people that believed in what we were doing. And then many years went by. 4.5 years went by where I was running Contagion in San Francisco. Came back and decided, you know what, I want to hand the reins off to my best friend from high school, who also happens to be my co-founder for Contagion. Traveled for a bunch of time because I was burnt out and really wanted to travel. Came back and lo and behold, Greg sent me an email and said, hey, you know what, I've invested in you before, you at least owe me a beer now that you're back in Toronto or you're back in Canada. So we went out, hung out for a bit. He was bored, he was sort of in semi-retirement mode. I was sort of just cruising and didn't know what to do after traveling for 6 months. And we thought, wouldn't it be cool if we just built games? And this is something he's been doing for a really long time. And me being kind of ADD and also being a gamer, thought, well, that would really feed into kind of my passion. And also I figured my ADD would really work in a world where I'm servicing people that all have ADD. So that's how I started Big Viking Games almost 2 years ago. Here in London. Otherwise, there's no chance in hell that I would have picked London to start a games company. Not that there's anything wrong with London, it's just a little bit random, but it's actually been awesome.
Carbon, which is the last company, co-founded with somebody that I was just met by accident almost. So you always get, you know, when you're a technology company, you put a posting online and you get recruiters, you know, calling you or inundating you and, you know, up the ass, and you usually ignore all of them. But this one recruiter happened to be in the same building or right around the corner, so I said, okay, fine. you know, she was saying, listen, I can find you good JavaScript guys, I can find you guys. So I said, okay, I'll meet with you. And then I met with her, and she said, you know, there was a company, we were in the Todd Center, so there's a company upstairs, it used to be upstairs and it's since disbanded, and they used to do software. And you know, the last founder is still up there, so I wanted to go talk to him. So I went and spoke with him, and I said, listen, you know, I'm looking for, you know, top level talent, et cetera, et cetera. And he said, I have the perfect guy for you, he just took a job in Waterloo. Long story short, the guy just started at a company in Waterloo, already didn't like it. I was in Waterloo for another event, and I called him up and said, let's go grab a coffee. And so he, you know, he was a young guy, very apprehensive, said he had a shitty car, he doesn't want to pick me up, can we just meet there? And I said, no, don't worry, you know, I don't have a car, so he come pick me up. So, and then we got to Tim Hortons, and I left my jacket at the event, so I didn't have a wallet, so he had to buy me a coffee.
I've done that before.
Yeah, by accident. So we talked, and what happened was he was building this really cool thing in his basement for the last 2 years. You know, just because he was a good programmer, interested in, you know, ADD, and had all these half-finished projects all over the place. And one of the projects that his former co-founder had shown me, or his former employer had shown me, was this JavaScript operating system. That, you know, and I was thinking about how native would eventually move to the cloud, and HTML5 would keep rolling and one day be on par or part of that. For people that, you know, computer science guys know, understand what I'm talking about. But so I met Jason at Tim Hortons. I said, listen, quit what you're doing, come work with me. This thing that you're doing in your basement, one day I want to do something with it. I'm not sure yet what, but I want you to come work with me on this other project we have going on. 6 months later, we put everything else on hold, and I invested 100% in Ireland, and then launched it in San Francisco, and very quickly got a lot of attention, and I think was smart enough to, sometimes you don't want to flip early, and sometimes it's a smart thing to do, so that's what we do.
My first company, I didn't have a co-founder. I founded it on my own. I was actually a lawyer. I went to law school in Australia, and did not want to be a lawyer, and ended up living in Bali, like total hippie, and saw a niche in the marketplace at a yoga retreat, and saw these people selling these beads for like $100, where I was like, we could do this, and no one was doing it in the West. And I didn't think I'd ever be able to have a co-founder, just because I was very driven and I kind of wanted to do it my way. About 3 or 4 years later, I got cold called by a guy named Jeff House. And it was about actually commercial real estate. I was looking for a space for my first startup, and he ended up becoming my boyfriend and my co-founder. So I very much followed David's path, and it seems to work for us. And that was the beginnings of Cole+Parker. So as Julian said, we make socks and start businesses. It's a social enterprise that started in February. And I've now, you know, it took away my just being just a solo founder, and it's been a great experience.
What's funny is that I find that was kind of an uphill battle for us, especially being young. Like when we started the company, we were probably, you know, just kind of turning 20. So we often felt like people just pigeonholed us as being like the mom and pop operation, and boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife, and it was like, oh, we have pity on you. You'll never make it, kind of thing. And it's like, you know, there's so many times we're just like, okay, let's just go do our own thing, or let's, you know, this is not working. But I mean, there's definitely kind of rules and boundaries that we set up in terms of the decision making that helps overcome that. But I would agree. I mean, looking back, I wouldn't do it any differently. But I can.
They're an edge case.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, for sure.
Yeah, I would say I would also agree with Jeff and myself. Like, we can't not work together. Like, every project he's involved in, I somehow get involved in. And our first meeting was actually a business meeting. We had no idea that we were going to end up falling in love and so on. It is really tough. You have to have very strong communication skills, and there has to be like a balance. You know, Jeff is a little bit more hands-off, or I'm a little bit more hands-on, so that's why it works. But yeah, it is hard, so maybe don't recommend it unless you're really sure it's what you want to do.